It was a crisp, moonless October night in 1998 when officers Mark Reynolds and Lisa Carter received the dispatch call that would change everything. The message was brief but strange. Reports of unexplained lights near Mill Creek, deep in the dense forests of Pine Ridge County. The locals had always whispered about that area, calling it cursed or haunted. Hunters spoke of disappearing deer, hikers described eerie shadows, and children said they heard voices coming from the trees when no one was around. Even as seasoned officers, Reynolds and Carter exchanged uneasy glances, a feeling in their gut telling them this wasn't a routine patrol. The drive out to Mill Creek was long and treacherous, the winding road flanked by towering pines whose skeletal branches seemed to scrape the sky. Their patrol car's headlights cut narrow paths through the darkness, but every mile brought a heavier silence. The usual nocturnal sounds of the forest, owl calls, rustling leaves, distant coyotes, were muted, as if the night itself were holding its breath. Carter adjusted her seatbelt and tried to joke about the ghost stories, but Reynolds, usually calm and collected, kept his eyes scanning the shadows. Even the radio chatter seemed distant, static creeping in at odd intervals, making it feel like they were driving deeper into another world entirely. As they neared the location reported by the locals, strange lights flickered in the distance, pale and almost translucent, dancing between the trees. They weren't like car headlights or lanterns. These were irregular, moving against the wind, as if they had a mind of their own. Carter called it in, her voice steady but tinged with unease, describing the lights to the dispatcher. Reynolds slowed the patrol car, his hands gripping the wheel tightly. The lights appeared closer now, weaving through the underbrush, disappearing when they tried to approach and reappearing further down the path. The officers felt a chill creep up their spines. Something about the lights was unnatural, something that didn't belong to the world they knew. Reynolds reached for the radio to request backup, but the moment he pressed the button, a surge of static drowned out his voice. Only fragments of his words made it through. "We see something, can't," and then silence. The line went dead, leaving a ringing in their ears. Carter's eyes darted around nervously, the forest suddenly alive with noises they hadn't heard before. Snapping branches, low murmurs, rustling that didn't match the wind. Every instinct screamed that they weren't alone, that something was watching. They were trained officers, prepared for danger in every form, but the unknown element, the unseen force, was something no training could prepare them for. Minutes stretched into eternity as the patrol car approached a narrow clearing near the edge of Mill Creek. The lights seemed to vanish as suddenly as they appeared, leaving the forest in pitch-black darkness. Reynolds and Carter slowed to a stop, listening intently, trying to detect the faintest sound. The usual sounds of the forest were gone, replaced by an oppressive silence so heavy it seemed to press down on them. Carter reached for her flashlight, shining it into the thick underbrush, catching only glimpses of moving shadows that vanished as soon as the light touched them. In that moment, a cold, invisible presence seemed to fill the car, and both officers realized, too late, that this night would not be like any other they had faced before. As soon as officers Reynolds and Carter failed to check in, a sense of alarm rippled through Pine Ridge County's police department. Dispatchers frantically tried to reach them, calling over the radio and even paging nearby officers, but all attempts returned nothing, just dead static. Within the hour, search teams were mobilized, and the normally quiet town buzzed with tension. Helicopters with floodlights circled the area, their beams cutting through the thick night fog, while patrol cars scoured the winding backroads. Yet, the dense forest of Mill Creek, with its twisted roots and shadowed hollows, seemed determined to swallow the officers whole, leaving no trace behind. K-9 units were brought in to track their scent, but even the dogs, trained for precision, grew hesitant. Their paws skittered over the damp forest floor, noses twitching, ears perked. But the trail ended abruptly in an area thick with underbrush. It was as if the officers had simply vanished, leaving no footprints, no broken branches, nothing to follow. Volunteers combed the forest edge, flashlights slicing through the darkness, eyes straining for movement. Some reported fleeting glimpses of shadows that seemed too quick, too purposeful to be animals. Fear began to grow that the forest itself had somehow claimed them. Locals were questioned in waves. Hunters who frequented Mill Creek swore they had seen the officer's car parked at the edge of the woods earlier that night, engine running, headlights flickering as though warning someone not to come closer. Hikers spoke of strange sounds, like whispered voices echoing between the trees, that they assumed were wind, but the timing was uncanny. Even children in the area whispered about the lights and men in the forest, fueling the growing unease. Every testimony added a layer of dread, as if the forest's mystery was building a wall around the truth, keeping the officers trapped in its shadows. Search teams spent days methodically combing every mile of Mill Creek. They dragged the creek bed, probed hollowed-out trees, and shone bright lights into the thickest parts of the forest, but it seemed futile. Helicopter footage showed only endless treetops, moving shadows, and a mist that clung stubbornly to the ground. As the hours turned into days, hope began to dwindle. Officers began to whisper about things that didn't make sense. Strange footprints too large for humans, noises that echoed from nowhere, and flashes of light that appeared only when no one was looking directly at them. The area was turning into a nightmare, and every new search only deepened the mystery. By the end of the first week, the initial search efforts had yielded nothing but frustration and fear. Families of the missing officers waited anxiously, holding on to hope that they were alive somewhere, even as the evidence suggested otherwise. Local media had picked up the story, amplifying the tension with every broadcast. Mill Creek became synonymous with danger, with even the bravest residents hesitating to venture near. Somewhere, deep in the forest, the officer's presence lingered like a ghost, an unanswered question that taunted everyone who dared to seek it. And yet, despite all the manpower, technology, and determination, the forest had swallowed them completely, leaving only the faintest trace of a patrol car at the edge of the darkness. As weeks turned into months, the disappearance of officers Reynolds and Carter became the talk of Pine Ridge County and beyond. With no concrete evidence, speculation ran wild. Some theorists argued that the officers had been ambushed by criminals operating in the area, illegal loggers, poachers, or even a rogue gang familiar with the isolated backroads. These people had motive, skill, and knowledge of the forest's secret paths. But skeptics questioned this theory. If criminals had attacked them, why leave no bodies? Why leave the patrol car intact, still parked at the edge of Mill Creek? The questions seemed endless, and every answer only bred more uncertainty. Then there were the darker, more supernatural theories, whispered quietly by locals around kitchen tables and barroom counters. Mill Creek had long been rumored to be cursed, a place where the natural and the unnatural blurred. People spoke of ghostly figures moving just beyond the tree line, of cold winds that seemed to follow certain travelers, and of lights that danced through the woods without source or pattern. Some claimed the officers had stumbled onto something they shouldn't have seen, something that the forest wanted to remain hidden. The unexplained lights, the sudden silence on the radio, the inexplicable disappearance of experienced officers, all of it fed the notion that something otherworldly was at play. Paranormal investigators began to take an interest, drawn by the strange reports and the forest's ominous reputation. They spoke of energy anomalies, electromagnetic disturbances, and even the possibility of interdimensional rifts. Their theories suggested that the officers might have crossed into another plane of existence, a world hidden within the forest, where time and space didn't follow the rules of reality. While many dismissed these ideas as wild speculation, the consistency of eyewitness accounts, lights moving against the wind, shadows that didn't belong, gave even skeptics a chill. The forest seemed alive, almost sentient, protecting its secrets from those who dared to intrude. Among the more rational explanations was the idea that the officers had gotten lost, trapped by natural hazards that were invisible to search teams. Mill Creek was notorious for hidden sinkholes, sudden drop-offs, and dense underbrush that could easily conceal someone from sight. Still, the strange details, the disappearing lights, the eerie silence, the final static-filled radio message, made a simple accident seem insufficient. People who ventured too close to the creek swore they felt an oppressive presence, as if the forest itself were watching. Even seasoned hikers reported an unshakable sense of being followed, heard whispers in the wind, or glimpsed shadows that moved with intention. Over the years, the theories only multiplied, each one more chilling than the last. True crime writers and paranormal enthusiasts alike pored over the case files, searching for clues that might reveal the truth. Every interpretation hinted at a larger mystery, a force beyond human understanding, yet no theory could definitively explain the officer's disappearance. Locals began avoiding the area entirely, warning outsiders of strange occurrences at Mill Creek. In the absence of answers, the forest became a legend, a place where the known and the unknown collided, leaving Reynolds and Carter as ghostly figures haunting the imagination of anyone who dared to wonder what really happened that night. As the years passed, the disappearance of officers Reynolds and Carter slowly faded from national headlines, but for Pine Ridge County's police department, the case never truly went cold. Every few years, detectives revisited the files, poring over the original notes, witness statements, and search reports. The sheer volume of detail was staggering: radio transcripts filled with static, maps marked with sightings of strange lights, and reports of fleeting shadows moving through the trees. To anyone outside the department, it might have seemed like a forgotten mystery, but to those who kept the files, the case was a puzzle that refused to be solved. Detective Sam Whitaker, who had been on the force at the time of the disappearance, took a personal interest. He meticulously reviewed each lead, re-interviewed witnesses, and examined every inch of the forest on his own. Over time, he began to notice patterns others had overlooked. Reports of strange lights always appeared in the same areas, always following a particular route through the forest. Even decades later, some locals swore they could hear whispers or see shadows exactly where Whitaker's notes indicated. To him, it seemed as though the forest was leaving breadcrumbs, enigmatic clues meant to be found, or perhaps warnings meant to be heeded. The cold case files revealed more than just sightings. They documented the subtle changes in the forest after that night in 1998. Animals avoided certain paths, hikers reported an uncanny silence, and hunters swore that parts of Mill Creek seemed off, almost as if the terrain had shifted over time. Investigators also noticed an unusual number of minor accidents and disappearances in the surrounding area, all clustered near the edges of the forest. Each incident, though unconnected on the surface, added to the growing sense that Mill Creek was a living, unpredictable force, one that had the power to swallow even the most experienced officers without leaving a trace. Over the years, some of the files themselves began to raise questions. Certain pages contained cryptic notes, odd sketches, and even symbols that didn't make sense to any officer who looked at them. Whitaker speculated that these markings weren't random. They might have been left by someone or something observing the officers before they vanished. Every detail in the files seemed to point towards something beyond ordinary criminal activity. The more he read, the more convinced he became that whatever had taken Reynolds and Carter was still present, waiting, and possibly aware that investigators were closing in, even decades later. Despite the passage of time, the cold case files kept the mystery alive. Each piece of evidence, every witness statement, every unexplained observation fed a story that defied logic. The more detectives studied the documents, the more they realized that Mill Creek had a history that reached far beyond the officer's disappearance, a history of secrets, warnings, and anomalies that seemed to have no explanation in the natural world. The files were more than records. They were a roadmap to a mystery that refused to be solved, a testament to a night when two officers disappeared and left behind only questions, whispers, and shadows. It had been 25 long years since officers Reynolds and Carter vanished into the darkness of Mill Creek, and the case had grown colder with every passing season. Then, one crisp morning in 2023, two hikers stumbled upon something strange while navigating a rarely used trail deep in the forest. At first, they thought it was a large pile of debris, camouflaged by overgrown shrubs and fallen leaves. But as they approached, the unmistakable shape of a patrol car emerged from the undergrowth. Its paint was faded, the windows clouded with grime, and yet the familiar markings of Pine Ridge County were still visible, a ghostly reminder of the past. Authorities were notified immediately, and within hours, a team of officers, investigators, and forensic experts had descended on the site. The scene was haunting. The patrol car was crumpled against the base of a tree, its tires partially buried in mud, as if it had been abandoned after a violent crash. Yet there were oddities that defied explanation. The car's interior was remarkably intact, almost preserved, and items that should have deteriorated over 2 decades, badges, notebooks, and even the officers' personal effects, remained undisturbed. It was as if time itself had behaved differently around this vehicle, isolating it from decay and the passage of the years. When the forensic team attempted to examine the radio equipment, they were shocked to find that it emitted a faint, static-filled signal. Within the crackling hiss, they discerned fragments of a voice repeating the same cryptic message that had been the officer's last transmission all those years ago. "We see something, can't handle it." The chilling realization set in that the patrol car wasn't just a relic, it was a frozen echo of that fateful night. Every member of the investigative team felt an unsettling weight in the air, as though the forest itself were watching their every move, silently guarding the secrets of what had truly happened to Reynolds and Carter. Local news crews flocked to the site, and the story made national headlines almost immediately. Yet even with cameras rolling and experts analyzing the scene, no one could explain the car's sudden appearance after a quarter of a century. For the locals who had grown up with stories of Mill Creek, it was both a vindication and a terror. The forest, they realized, had finally revealed part of its secret, but in a way that only deepened the mystery. Sightseers reported feeling sudden chills, hearing whispers carried on the wind, and glimpsing fleeting shadows just beyond the trees. The forest seemed alive, responding to those who dared enter its domain. Investigators began documenting every detail meticulously. Oddities in the vehicle suggested that something, or someone, had moved through it without disturbing the surroundings. The surrounding ground showed no clear footprints leading away, no evidence of a struggle, only the dense, unbroken underbrush of the forest. Experts couldn't explain how a vehicle could survive decades in such conditions with items inside nearly untouched. Every analysis raised more questions than answers, and the eerie sense of being observed persisted. The discovery of the patrol car had reignited the decades-old mystery, but it also hinted at something far stranger than anyone could have imagined, something that had remained hidden, patient, and perhaps waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. As forensic teams began a careful inspection of the patrol car, what they discovered inside sent chills down the spines of even the most seasoned investigators. At first glance, everything appeared intact. Officers' badges, notebooks, flashlights, and even personal items lay neatly in place. But closer examination revealed disturbing anomalies. The dashboard and interior panels were etched with strange symbols, shapes that resembled no known alphabet or numerical system. Some appeared to twist and contort as though moving when viewed from different angles, creating an unsettling sense that the symbols were watching. A faint metallic scent filled the air, a mixture of rust and decay that shouldn't have been possible after 25 years. Even stranger, dust patterns suggested movement inside the car long after it had been abandoned. It was as if someone, or something, had walked across the seats and floorboards without disturbing a single item. Investigators photographed and documented every detail, but even their high-resolution cameras struggled to capture the eerie quality of the markings. Shadows seemed to bend unnaturally around the symbols, and some officers reported feeling sudden, unexplained chills as if invisible eyes were observing them from the darkness. Among the most unsettling discoveries were the officers' personal notes. Reynolds and Carter had scribbled brief observations from that fateful night, and some pages contained scrawled warnings, references to the lights, movement in the trees, and voices calling. Certain entries were unfinished, interrupted mid-sentence, mirroring the fragmented radio transmission that had long haunted the case. Investigators felt a growing sense of unease reading the words, as if the officers' fear had been preserved within the car itself. Each notation seemed to pulse with the anxiety and dread that had consumed them in those final moments. Electronic equipment inside the vehicle also behaved strangely. Flashlights would flicker without batteries being low, radios emitted bursts of static at random intervals, and a GPS device displayed coordinates that led deeper into Mill Creek, far past any path or trail. Technicians ran multiple tests, but the devices responded as though powered by an unknown force, their behaviors defying conventional explanation. Some team members whispered that the car was not merely an artifact but a kind of conduit, a preserved fragment of the night when Reynolds and Carter vanished, bridging the world of the living with something beyond comprehension. Even the surrounding area of the crash site added to the unease. Small footprints appeared in the mud near the car, but none matched human sizes or shapes, and some seemed to vanish abruptly into the underbrush. Investigators reported hearing whispers, low and fragmented, carried on the wind through the trees, echoing phrases like "leave, now," and "they are watching." Some claimed to see fleeting shadows just beyond their line of sight, disappearing the instant they tried to focus on them. Every strange finding inside and around the patrol car reinforced a terrifying truth. The forest, and perhaps the car itself, held secrets that were far older, stranger, and more malevolent than anyone had imagined. Even after the shocking discovery of the patrol car, the disappearance of officers Reynolds and Carter remained a puzzle that defied explanation. Investigators from across the country examined the evidence, yet no theory fully accounted for what had happened. Some suggested the officers had fallen victim to an elaborate trap set by human perpetrators, but the absence of footprints, struggle marks, or signs of forced entry rendered that theory almost impossible. Others leaned toward paranormal explanations, citing the strange symbols, fleeting shadows, and mysterious lights, but these claims were dismissed by skeptics as sensationalism. Still, the more experts examined the evidence, the more unsettling the mystery became. Locals who had lived through the events of 1998 continued to tell stories of the forest's strange behavior. Hunters spoke of unidentifiable sounds echoing through Mill Creek, hikers reported sudden temperature drops, and some even claimed to have seen ghostly figures resembling Reynolds and Carter wandering near the edge of the trees. Paranormal enthusiasts flocked to the site, documenting fleeting lights, eerie whispers, and strange energy readings. Each report, while anecdotal, added layers of intrigue, suggesting that whatever had claimed the officers' lives, or taken them elsewhere, was still present, hidden in the depths of the forest, watching and waiting. The patrol car itself became an object of fascination and fear. Authorities removed it for study, but some investigators who visited the vehicle reported unexplained phenomena. Shadows moving just beyond vision, a sense of being followed, and whispers that seemed to come from the car itself. Paranormal researchers speculated that the car might be a conduit or a doorway, a frozen fragment of that terrifying night when the officers vanished. Even seasoned detectives admitted that the evidence challenged conventional reasoning, leaving them with a haunting sense of helplessness. The forest and the car seemed connected, part of a puzzle that no one alive could fully decipher. Over the years, several theories gained traction among the public. Some suggested a secret government experiment, an unknown natural phenomenon, or even an encounter with a creature that had evaded detection for centuries. None could explain the cryptic symbols, the preserved condition of the car, or the fragmented, static-filled radio transmissions. Whatever force or entity had intervened seemed to exist outside normal rules, capable of bending space, time, and human perception. And while people debated, the forest remained quiet but tense, as if aware of the conversations and observant of anyone daring to probe its secrets too deeply. Despite decades of investigation, the story of Reynolds and Carter has become a modern legend, a chilling reminder that some mysteries are never meant to be solved. The patrol car sits in an evidence lot, isolated, a silent relic of a night that continues to haunt the community. Mill Creek, with its dark trees, hidden pathways, and unexplained phenomena, holds the answers, yet refuses to reveal them. For those who venture near, the forest offers only shadows, whispers, and the unsettling feeling that someone, or something, is always watching. The fate of the two officers remains unknown, leaving the mystery alive, chilling, and ever present in the hearts of those who remember that fateful night. As the years pass, the forest of Mill Creek remains as silent and watchful as ever. The patrol car sits in its evidence lot, untouched, its secrets sealed away, but the whispers linger, faint yet persistent, in the wind that rustles through the trees. Some say if you venture too close, you might catch a glimpse of the officers' shadows moving between the trunks, forever trapped in a world that defies explanation. And while investigators, locals, and curious visitors all search for answers, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. Some mysteries are never meant to be solved. Mill Creek keeps its secrets, and those who dared enter its darkness may never return the same, or at all. So the next time you drive past a quiet forest or hear a light crackling in the distance, remember the story of Reynolds and Carter. Some places hold more than just trees. They hold the unknown, the unseen, and the terrifying possibility that the line between reality and the inexplicable is thinner than we ever imagined. For now, the forest waits, patient and eternal, and the question remains, what really happened that night, and could it happen again?
If you liked this video, don't forget to hit that like button, share it with your friends, and drop your thoughts in the comments below. Most importantly, subscribe and hit the bell icon so the next secret finds you first.